the thing that I've realized is like everyone's sort of in their own silo about it. It's not like there's a community where, and if they're listening to your podcast, I'm sure that, then they are part of a community. But for the most part, it's not like you open a gym and someone hands you a package where they're like, these are the things that you need to do to not get sued or to protect your business or to protect your brand. So I think the most common thing that I hear from people is like, they didn't know that they were supposed to know, and there wasn't really a place where they could go to get the information. That's probably how I would summarize all those experiences.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today for our giant, we're going all the way down to Brazil, south of the border in Brazil. We've got Corey Sterling, who is with the Conscious Council, and he is a big-time corporate attorney who said, you know what? I don't want to do any of this. I want to move to Brazil, live on the beach, and kite surf. And so that's what he's been doing. Oh, but he also still wants to fulfill the legal needs of everybody in the fitness community. So we're going to talk to Corey about everything, moving to Brazil, why he did it, what kite surfing is like, and what are some of the most common things that fitness owners need to protect themselves from a legal liability standpoint, and the easiest and the cheapest way to do that. So Corey, welcome to the show, man. Did I miss anything?
No, you got it. It's amazing. You actually captured my entire life in 27 seconds. So fantastic job.
Okay, good. Well, take us through it, because I know I talked to your bud, and he was telling me all about it. So take us through. You were working in the big corporate. Weren't you like in a sports agency or something like that?
No, I in my 20s, I worked in the NFL. I worked for the Oakland Raiders for 2 years, and then I did some work for the NFL UK and NFL Media Services. And then basically my life got to a point where I was like 23 years old, getting paid to watch NFL Network and ESPN. And I was just like, there has to be something more going on. As cool as that is, and at the time it was a dream job, but it wasn't, I think in the long term, it wouldn't have been that fulfilling. So then I basically traveled the world for like 4 or 5 years on my own, eventually came back, went to law school, worked as a corporate lawyer, wore a suit and tie, defended tobacco companies, did all the things that a typical lawyer would do. And then basically said, fuck it. I studied too hard and I worked too hard to be miserable. So I decided in 2017 to take my law firm online. I decided to choose my clients, and I was like, look, if nobody wants to work with me, or if I've completely missed the mark on what I think the need in the market is, I'll come back and be miserable again. But luckily, I'm still on the same trip from when I left in 2017. So it's been great.
Yeah. So you moved out to Brazil. Now, why Brazil?
Well, I'm in Brazil now. I've been in Brazil for 2 years, but when I started, I flew to Europe on a one-way ticket to Copenhagen, and I had $3,000, and I was like, cool, if I run out, then I'll just go back and get a job downtown again. But then that first year I went to India. I went to Nepal. I went to Everest Base Camp. I was surfing in Sri Lanka. I did sort of Asia for the first year, or continental India for the first year. And then the second year, I did the Middle East and I did parts of South America. And then the third year, I was living in Rosario in Argentina, and I got an email from my buddy. He's like, yo, New Year's is coming up. One of our friends dropped out. You can stay at this sweet beach pad with us for free if you can be at this airport at this date. And then I went, and I haven't left since.
That is incredible. That is a dream life. That's most people's dream life. So, and then you got into kite surfing. Why kite surfing?
In a very similar way of how I got to Brazil. Here it's a thing. I didn't know that it was a thing, right? Like the same way jujitsu is a thing here, and like I didn't know that jujitsu was a thing because if it's outside of your periphery, you don't pay attention to it.
Right.
And my buddy was just like, hey, we're going to this place. A couple of guys, we're going to learn kite surfing if you want to join. I was like, sure. So then I just went and I suffered, and I was terrible, and I was awful, and I was the worst. I think I was the worst student in the school. One of the teachers actually fired me. He was like, I'm not working with you anymore. But it actually, it really drove me to become competent and to become able in doing it. And now in 2 weeks, I'm doing something called an Iron Macho, which is the part I'm doing is 400 kilometers in 4 days. So I'm really on the train of trying to improve and be as competent as possible. And look, kite surfing has taught me more about myself than any other activity, I'm sure. And, everyone who's listening to this has that relationship with fitness, whether it's lifting, whether it's rolling, whether it's playing a team sport. By training, by challenging yourself, by doing new things, you learn more about who you are and what you're made of. And that's what kiting means to me.
Yeah. And you're acquiring new skills. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu to Brazil is like hockey is to Canada, pretty much is the best way that I can describe it. Yeah. It's hard to get around Brazil without talking to somebody who rolls. Okay. So you take your law firm online and you decide who your clients are. So how take us through that process? Are your clients mostly fitness businesses?
There's my clients now, 4 years later, there's my clients now, and then there's my clients 4 years ago. Which would you prefer to know about?
Your clients now, because when your clients, like walk me through the decision, like how do you said, I'm going to quit this, I'm going to choose my own clients. Yeah. So walk us through the process of how you made the decision on which clients you were going to serve going forward.
It happened in sort of two ways. So I was working at a law firm, and just by helping friends, and I was living in Vancouver, British Columbia at the time, I had this number where I was like, when I've done work for 10 awesome people, like I was like, I need 10 all-star model clients. And all of them were like doing something related with sports or training or fitness or yoga and some community element to their project. And I'd help them and I love them and I had a great relationship. And I was like, once I have 10, then I can go on my own and I can just leverage my 10 all-stars to start building a book and building my business. But really how it went from there was just like, in a very honest sense, I started traveling, and I noticed that whenever I travel, I would like go to a different gym or try a different workout class or do anything. And it was just like the people that I was naturally attracting in my universe, everyone was doing something fitness or sports related. And then I would because I was starting out as a lawyer and I, didn't really find any other lawyers who were working specifically with fitness professionals, I was like, well, what sort of agreements are you using? And what about this? And what about that? And then I realized that there was a gap in the market. And then in terms of choosing clients, when I started my business, I wasn't like, I will do anything for anyone. I was sort of the opposite. A, because I was online and traveling, there were only specific things that I could do. And B, what I learned very early on is that no matter a client or someone who's challenging or someone who's disrespectful or not fun to work with, right? So I basically made a decision where I was like, I'm just going to see if I gel with people, and if it's a right connection, I'll go with it. And that's been a sort of a very organic way of how I've grown the business. And also, like, do I believe in what they're doing? There have been some times where I've spoken with people who are doing things that I don't personally agree with. So I won't, there's any related, anything that's basically negative, I won't do, but things that are positive community-based projects, I'll go above and beyond to work with those types of people.
Okay. Got it. So, so you take your law firm online, and then, so what was that model like? How, obviously you need to scale it, right? So how did you scale it to help the most people?
Scaling it took years. I just launched this website by myself, a Canadian boy in Vancouver. And I got an email from someone in Alabama. They're like, oh my God, I found your website. I love it. How can I start a conscious council in Alabama? And I was like, I was 3 weeks into my first business, zero entrepreneurial experience. I'm like, I did it. Like, I'm just going to sell a law firm in a box and start licensing and franchising. And it was just like, I was like, no, that's not how it works. And so I really spent, when I started, the honest truth is the first year, 2 years, did almost everything myself. I did the marketing myself. I did all the document drafting myself. I did all of these things on my own. And then only over time, and I read a lot of business books. I got my first coach about 1.5 years into it. And then they introduced this word to me. It's a very magic word, Jim. It's called processes.
Yeah.
So I learned that it's possible to have a process around something that, because before it, to be honest, the first 2 years were scrambled eggs. It was like, yeah, I'll do that now, here, there, blah, blah, because you have no idea what
fires left and right. Yeah.
Yeah. But the beautiful thing is that you have to go through that experience to have the expertise in the field and understand every aspect of your business. But then by doing that over time, you learn to develop and appreciate processes and and so now, yeah, it basically probably in the start of 2020 was really when we realized that we could really grow and scale, to use a word that you used, and to help so many more people than we were able to help before by having processes around everything that we do.
Got it. Okay. So then you took the business online and then you discovered processes and came up with some standard forms. And I think you described them as packets. So you have a unique perspective in that you've literally been all around the world to, fitness markets that most people may not even know exist. So what is the common thread when you see from legal aspects that fitness business need to address first off?
With all due respect, no one really knows. 90% have no idea what they're doing or what their exposure to liability is. Unfortunately, that's the reality. So the way that I explain that when I give a presentation is most fitness professionals don't know what they don't know. You're just unaware of how misclassifying a contractor instead of an employee, what that could mean long-term in terms of getting audited by the government. They don't understand what needs to be in a waiver of liability. They don't understand how auto pay rules are changing for their membership agreement, all of these things. But I would say going around the world and interacting with so many different fitness professionals in different ways, the thing that I've realized is like everyone's sort of in their own silo about it. It's not like there's a community where, if they're listening to your podcast, I'm sure that, then they are part of a community. But for the most part, it's not like you open a gym and someone hands you a package where they're like, these are the things that you need to do to not get sued or to protect your business or to protect your brand. So I think the most common thing that I hear from people is like, they don't know, they didn't know that they were supposed to know, and there wasn't really a place where they could go to get the information. That's probably how I would summarize all those experiences.
I would say that's 100% accurate. So how do you cross that hurdle? How do you cross that problem?
You make law fun. You dress it up.
Now, please tell me how you do that.
Are you having fun right now?
I am, actually.
And we're talking about law. That's how you do it.
Okay. All right. I got it.
Yeah. You let people know that the first thing that you do is you empathize with them and explain that you understand how dry and challenging and boring and scary of a subject this is. You acknowledge that everyone else has no idea what's going on. And then you're all starting at the same base. And you're like, hey, why don't we just look at this a little bit differently? Instead of thinking about lawyers that suck and agreements that you don't understand, that don't represent the relationship that you have, why don't we look at this as empowering? And like, once I get this taken care of, then I can launch that new program, or then I won't be, I'll have the confidence and the security to do that thing that I always wanted to do, or to really grow my membership. Like, the craziest thing for me that I'll always hear from clients is they're like, I really want to put myself out there and grow, but I just don't have the foundation in place. And because I don't have that foundation, I don't have the confidence or the security to do what I want to do. And that's sort of like, to me, it's counterintuitive. I just think of my accountant and like all the things that my accountant does for me. And that, I know, okay, well, he's going to tell me how much I have to pay in taxes. So I can go get as much business as I wanted. Whereas when I started, I was like, oh, well, I don't want to get too much money because I'm not, I wasn't working with an accountant. I didn't know what I was doing. So it's sort of like sometimes people just need to be told it's okay. And I've got your back and I know what I'm doing. And I've done this with hundreds of other people. And then once they have that, it's like sort of like a placebo effect to some degree, where they're like, oh, now that thing that I was worrying about is covered and taken care of. So I can go off and do this or launch this or hire more people or raise my prices or whatever it is that they want to do.
Okay, I gotcha. So when you get a client, then you're almost reverse engineering all their legal agreements, because like you said, they don't know what they don't know. So by the time they become aware of it, they're already behind the 8 ball and they need to play catch up. Because like when you were saying about when fit pros contact you and they say, I want to go out there, I want to put myself out there, but I don't have a foundation. What do you think they mean by foundation?
They don't have any educational basis to understand what they're supposed to have.
Okay.
This happened today on a call that I was on today. Someone launching an online fitness business wants to do it, has been thinking about doing it for a long time. Their big block, just as an example, was about international clients and insurance. So what happens with the jurisdiction? I'm based in California. What happens if I'm getting clients, people in Australia? Because of Instagram, everyone's reaching out to everyone all over the place. So for them, they were like, until I get the legal documents in place, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to look or what's going to happen. So when they say that I don't have the foundation, what they really mean is I have no idea what I'm doing and I don't want to get sued. So I want everything to be organized properly before I do it. That's the sort of the best case scenario for me to take. In terms of the reverse engineering and playing catch up, that happens too. And like the only thing that worries me about that is when you have other people working for you in the contractor employee stuff. Just because like around that, there's tricky things around intellectual property ownership, if you've recorded videos and if you're trying to enforce a non-compete and like whatever other boring stuff can come up. But that's really the reality. The reality is that, and just coming back to that point of everyone being in a silo, like I can talk to any gym owner or fitness professional, and in 25 seconds, I can diagnose exactly what they need. I'm like, cool. Like you just need these 3 agreements, like everyone else who we work with. But to them, it's because they haven't spent the past 4 years every single day talking to other fitness professionals about the law. So to them, it seems like a big burden or a scary situation or something that's really difficult to overcome. When I'm like, the average answer time for our 3 documents is 12 minutes, like 12 minutes of your life. And then you get customized documents and then just go do whatever you want. And if something comes up, send me an email. Like that's really what's happening here.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. Kind of what I call it almost feels like they're pole vaulting over mouse turds, because it seems like such a big monumental task. And I know in my mind, when I got an accountant first before I contacted an attorney, and the reason was was twofold. One, I have a totally rational fear of the tax man and not paying my taxes. So I want to get my accountant. But the second thing is my accountant isn't that expensive. But when I hired that attorney and he just drew up an employee agreement and it was thousands of dollars. I was like, this is bullshit. Like what there's no way I'm going back to have him help me with my waiver or my client contract. So that's for me was the biggest thing. Number one, there was a big drop in, like you said, understanding what I need and understanding the law and thinking that for me, I always thought an attorney was always kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Was it an enemy, somebody on the other side?
I never thought you were going to use a way, way worse word. I was waiting for that to drop.
No. They like antagonistic. That's the word I'm looking for.
Antagonistic.
Adversarial. Yes. Thank you very much. I never even thought of the concept of having a lawyer on an attorney on my team. So what do you say to people that are in that boat or in that situation?
Look, the reality is that, well, I'm going to answer. This is my first response. The reason why I started my law firm with the model that we have, and the model is that we only worked on fixed fees, and that we offer unconditional support included with that price, is because I had worked at 2 different law firms and I saw one common thing. Clients were coming in, paying thousands of dollars, not understanding what they were getting, leaving with documents they didn't understand, and always complaining about prices. And I worked at a small law firm, and one of the first tasks that I got, my boss gave me an Excel spreadsheet of like 85 clients who had not paid their fees. And he's like, call these people, try to get them to pay their fees. And to me, it was like such a response to it was a response to the symptom. Well, you know what I'm trying to say? It was symptomatic of what the problem is. It wasn't that people weren't paying. It's that the model was set up incorrectly so that people didn't feel value that they wanted to pay. And so
you're treating the symptom and not the issue. Yeah,
exactly. The issue was like, hey, because there it was like, cool, we sign a retainer, we're $600 an hour and we're going to draft a document for you. And then people would get bills for $1,800 and they'd be like, WTF, what's going on here? And so when I started my firm, the most important thing to me was no one will ever pay me $1 unless I'm 100% clear about everything that they're getting that's included with that payment. And so what I would say to you, Jim, is like, it sucks that you had that experience with a crappy lawyer, in the sense of for example, with us, 3 documents is $1,985. And you paid thousands of dollars for one document that probably wasn't industry specific, but so that's what I'm up against. In trying to bring legal solutions and make things turnkey for fitness professionals, I'm up against everyone's baggage and drama and history of working with some lawyers who give our profession a bad name. And I accept that, and I take I'm super stoked to be here and to go one person at a time. And the thing I'm most proud about in our business, I've got 260 5-star reviews, and you should read. You don't have to, but I mean, not theoretically, it's cool for me whenever I doubt myself, or I'm like, is this working? I read what people who otherwise would not have worked with a lawyer are saying about working with lawyers. And it's a testament to the team more than it is to me, but it's just cool that we've been able to engineer this fun experience for people where they feel supported, they feel empowered, and most importantly, they're entrepreneurs with a dream and a vision. And now they have one of the most important pieces in place so that they can go do whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that answer a lot. And I apologize, but I have to ask. So for those people who are listening just on audio and not watching the video, so Corey is literally on the beach in a house with a thatch roof with the wind blowing in with the beach. And is that a bird up there? What is that up there behind you?
Right here.
Yeah.
No, that's some decoration thing.
Oh, okay. I saw it moving. I thought you had some kind of bird in there.
No, but you can check. I'll show you one thing. So this is just so you know, I would normally not record anything at this time, but I was very eager to do this. But this is sunset hour out here. So there's some sand dunes. And this is the office. So it's a magical hour. Brazil's the best. Brazil's every day I wake up feeling super lucky to be here and thanking myself for the decision to find my way.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So, I just had to, I was so distracted by that. But, so let's get back to it. So you basically simplified it, and you have this formula where you simplified it and look, these are the 3 most common forms you need. Here's one price with unlimited support, things like that. So, how do, clients usually utilize you the best?
What they would do is, let's say they would reach out to us. I would hop on a call with them, a 10-minute connection call. They would tell me what it is that they're doing. Like, hey, I'm starting a new studio in Illinois, or I want to start an online platform in Dakota or South Dakota or whatever it is. They would explain what it is that they want to do, what different relationships they have. We'd set them up with a package and then they would sign up. And it's not, I mean, not to oversimplify it, but when all of your clients are saying the same thing, it becomes very, very easy to know what it is that they need. And the cool thing about us being industry specialists is like, I can tell you the two biggest issues that someone opening a new studio is going to come up with. And our documents already have those issues proactively addressed. That's the difference of being industry specific, as opposed to like, oh, you know, any lawyer who works for dry cleaners and a car rental company and a gym, they won't have seen the repetition to know what exactly it is that's needed.
Yeah. And my question will be about support. So,
yeah,
you know, if I have a question or if I have an urgent need, how do I know I can get a hold of you and you're not going to be out kite surfing on the beach?
Yeah, well, most of the services that we provide are not time sensitive. So like going back to the whole of reverse engineering, my law practice, anything that would be time sensitive, I don't do. Anything that has filing deadlines, I don't do. But as an example, there's a client who signed up, who she's got an online personal training business. We set her up with a document. She needed another one. We turned it around in 35 minutes for her. Just like there's someone on our team who's a community manager whose job is to sit on email. Our whole team is based all over the world and in different places. And yeah, it would, in the event that something were to come up, someone would be able to reach out to me. And if it's important, I'll get right back to them and support them. But when it comes to the scope of the documents, for the 3 documents, we hop on a call, we explain everything, we walk you through it. If you have any, like it only goes to completed when the client feels 100% about it.
Got it. Okay. And what are those 3 documents? What are the 3 most common documents you guys run up against?
Yeah. So the first is the waiver of liability, which is the document that prevents you from getting sued. We've seen just constant ongoing need for it in the sense of people who are doing pre-recorded things, plus online, plus reopening now with COVID, doing activities outdoors in garages, wherever you're mounting your gym. So having a waiver of liability that captures what you do and how you do it. A client service agreement. That's the agreement that you have with your clients, whether that's a membership agreement, whether it's a one-on-one training agreement, whatever it is. Our whole philosophy is communicate expectations openly and honestly. And what I've seen is that when you have documents where you let people know exactly what they're getting into before they start, excuse me, and they agree to be legally bound to it, if an issue comes up, it's very, very easy to resolve that issue. The point isn't to, you know, fantasize that there's never going to be a problem. The practical reality is there's probably going to be a problem. So how can you be in the best position to quickly, easily, and cost effectively respond to that problem? And then the third document would be the privacy policy, website terms of service, and a social media disclaimer. And that's just because everyone's doing email marketing now. Everyone's collecting payments by utilizing third-party processors, and all the rules around that have changed. So they need to be updated.
Yeah. Okay. And then I have questions on each one of those documents. The first one is the waiver. So yeah. What is different from the waiver you provide versus one that somebody may happen to cut and paste from the internet?
Okay. Well, I wrote a book called the Yoga Law Book. When I first really started dealing with yoga professionals, and I wrote a chapter on waivers of liability. And so I did all of this research into waivers of liability, just like reading cases and cases and cases and cases on waivers of liability. A waiver of liability always comes down to how clearly it is drafted and how specifically it covers the activities that are being done. So just as an example, and the whole thing is like, and I'll never forget, I have a client in New Hampshire who was like, he was trying to tell me why he should use the waiver of liability that he got from the internet. And he's like, well, like I got it from the internet and I wrote it myself. And my question to him is like, what qualifications do you have to be writing a waiver of liability? Like, you haven't read cases. You don't know what should be in there. You don't know what you're looking for. It's like Yeah, it would be like me fixing my car. Like, I don't know how to fix a car if something's broken, but like, well, I played around with it, so I did it. But to be more specific, like what's different about ours is that firstly, like I've gone through the experience of specifically being part of negotiations and responding to demand letters around fitness waivers for a long time. So I know specifically what things need to be there, but it's also like, it's about the specifics of what you're doing, how you're doing it, making sure you cover all of those things, making sure all of the equipment is included, like, right? Like a CrossFit gym and someone who does personal training in a gym, those are two different, a waiver, right? If you have someone who you just do one-on-one training with sign a CrossFit box waiver of liability, it may not cover them. And one thing I can tell you is like when someone gets injured and they want to sue you and they can't go to work and they have post-concussion syndromes, they will look for any, by crook or by hook, they will look for any reason to challenge a waiver of liability. And just for me, what I don't do it anymore, but I used to review client waivers and fix them just because now it's easier to do it on our own. And I'm like, if someone paid me $20 to challenge this waiver of liability, I would destroy it in 15 seconds. And I see so much crap out there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So again, cover your ass.
Cover your ass and have documents that are specific to your business and your practice, because like even as an example, let's say you don't include kettlebells as equipment that you use and someone uses kettlebells and it slips out and something happens and someone gets hurt doing a KB swing or something like that. Cool. Yeah. I signed a waiver of liability. You didn't tell me anything about kettlebells or that I could expect to be in an environment with kettlebells. Sorry, I never agreed to participate in this activity with this risk.
Yeah.
And what they'll say is, oh, if I knew kettlebells were involved, I wouldn't have signed it. That's the standard move. Okay,
got it. Okay. And then the other thing is with the client agreements, and I agree with you because, I find it very helpful when they're signing the agreement to go over cancellation policy, our cancellation policy, our late cancel policy, and our membership cancellation policy, no show, just all of the policies, so that down the road, they can't come back and say, oh, well, this wasn't clearly spelled out. You owe me 5 more sessions, or I want a refund for this, or I'm not paying for that. Right?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll just give you the example that I saw a lot of gyms go through. And it happened when the transition of everyone went from in-person services to providing online. All of these membership or service agreements, none of them said anything about offering services online or having classes online or anything like that. So you look at, I paid an annual membership, and this is like the golden rule of consumer protection laws are that it is illegal, even if subject to whatever is signed, it is illegal to accept money for something that you are unable to provide. Full stop. That is illegal in every jurisdiction. That's Consumer Protection Law 101. So what happened was there were all these studios that like pivoted to offering online services. Membership stayed the membership agreement stayed the same, or the service agreement stayed the same. And everyone's like, no, I want a full refund. You're unable to deliver on you can't execute on the promises that you've made of this agreement. Everything in this agreement talks about in-person services. I'm like, that's something that you'd never think about until you go through it. And for me, it was like one day I woke up and I had 5 of my clients being like, 30% of my clients just canceled, and now Visa has offered a chargeback against me. How do I get all of this money back?
Yeah.
And it's a process, and it's long, and it's expensive. That's why you want to do all of it up front.
Got it. Okay. And then last but not least, you were talking about, what was the third form you mentioned?
Privacy policies, terms of service.
Terms of service. And I didn't understand terms of service on the website. Can you explain that to the listeners?
Yeah. So terms of service on a website are sort of like the board game rules that you would have to a board game. It's like, you open the box. The first thing you do is you read the rules, and then you start playing with the pieces. The tricky thing is when you have a website, you don't control who comes to the website. You don't control what they do when they're on the website. So sometimes we see people copying information and using it for their own. We see people making purchases through the website and then being dissatisfied and wanting a refund or wanting this. We see people who are following information on a blog. They may suffer injuries, or they feel that certain promises were made that weren't delivered upon. And so the terms of service are like the board game rules of your website, so that if someone steals your stuff, or if someone is going to allege that you made a certain promise or that information that you have is incorrect, you can rely on those terms of service to be like, hey, well, we told you that when you were visiting this website, and all you have to do at law to be compliant is you need to have a footer on the bottom of your web page that is in a different color than the background of the text. So if your website is black, you could have text in any other color just so that it's visible. That's basically what it means. And you have to give people the opportunity. Look, who goes to a website and reads the terms of service? I've never done that in my entire life. But in the event that there's a problem and you need to rely on those terms of service to not offer a refund, to enforce copyright laws, to protect, to prove to someone that you're not making a misrepresentation when you shared information. That's how you would use the terms of service. It's demonstrated as a means of defense to communicate to people, hey, well, we told you in using this site that these are the rules, and by accessing the site, you impliedly agreed to be bound to those rules, and therefore your claim fails, and we do not owe you any money. That's like the standard situation.
Got it. And the privacy policy is to keep people from stealing your stuff?
Privacy policy is twofold. One, it's all of the rules related to collecting personal information. So everyone who has a mailing list, like strangely enough, the one agreement that has been brought forth with the most animosity and vigor from governments have been privacy policies, just because in the past 2 years, everything's happened online. So if you're collecting personal information, i.e. first name, last name, address, email address, anything related to health information whatsoever, there are very, very stringent rules about where you store it, who you share it with. Are you giving it to a third party? What if someone wants to revoke that information? And I had this happen with a client last week. Someone came and hacked their entire system. So all of the information that they were holding was compromised. And in that situation, her defense was a properly drafted privacy policy that basically said, hey, in the event that something happens, we promise to inform you and let you know, and spelled all of it out so that in the end, she was not legally responsible for that. But if she didn't have that, there could have been problems for sure.
Got it. Okay. So those are 3 of the easiest most common fixes for most fitness businesses. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Corey, this has been awesome, actually. I'm jealous of your lifestyle for sure, but I always end with 3 questions for my guests, and it's my favorite part because we get to peek behind the curtain that is Corey Sterling. But with you, I'm gonna bump it up to 4 questions. So my first question is, what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a devastating loss that you didn't think you were going to be able to recover from, but you were able to take life lessons from it that propelled you to greater success down the road.
It's a great question. It's something that I reflect on often. I started a yoga festival with a friend of mine. I had a business partner, and look, it was a disaster. It was amazing. Like from the outside, the first year we had 100 people. The second year we had 200 people. The third year we had 600 people. But it was a disaster. It was the most challenging working relationships I had. I learned so much about what I didn't want to do. I went through a period of such contrast. But there's 2 amazing feelings. Like one is like when I was in it, I was just like, I cannot wait for this to be over. And like, I swear to you, almost every night when I lie in bed before I go to sleep, I'm like, thank God I do not have to run a yoga festival anymore. And that was years ago. But it also showed me that you even though something is awful in the moment and you hate it and you want to stop, that the skill set and my ability for capacity to work, to stretch myself, to learn, to be open. That everything that I am today was because of that terrible experience of running a yoga festival. So, and thank God, like, it was cool. It happened. Everyone was safe. It was like, to the public, it was an amazing event, but internally I hated it. I hated it. But I stuck with it. I overcame it. And just even the gratitude of not doing something that I hate anymore makes me so happy on a daily basis.
Gotcha. Okay. And then in your time in the fitness industry, what has been the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with that you did not see coming? And COVID is exempt because nobody saw that coming.
Sure, but yeah, I'll say honestly, I think what surprised me the most, and I'm not going to talk about COVID specifically, but I will just say I still think it's crazy that everything's just happening online. And like that fitness classes are done online and not in person, just because for me, I was a group fitness instructor for years. There's nothing like, I just wanted to be at the gym. I wanted to be in the class. I wanted to see my friends. I wanted to be there. And like, I loved in-person fitness classes. And to me, it's crazy that so much of it is now done online. And to me, it doesn't hold a candle to what it was. And God willing, we'll be able to get back there. But it's like, I never thought I would see that day. I never thought that, people would individually be doing spinning classes or something like, what's the name of that company that's so incredibly successful that
Peloton.
Peloton. Yeah. Like I never thought that that's what the future would be. And to me, it's completely shocking. And it makes me appreciate anything I get to do in person that much more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought, I think COVID has kind of just sped up evolution a little bit. But I think as COVID goes away, I think people still crave, like you said, that community, that connection, the friendships, the camaraderie, the atmosphere, all of that. So I thought that online was going to have a huge presence, but I think as COVID goes away, I think it'll push back. I still think it'll be bigger than it was, but I don't think it's going to be as big as everybody thinks it is once COVID goes away. And a lot of it depends on where you are too. So, and then my other question is, where do you go for your personal and professional development?
I go to audiobooks.
Okay.
I go to audiobooks.
So what are some of the books you've read recently?
I can, if it's cool, I'm going to open I don't really know the names, but I'm happy to share. There's someone whose name is Dan Kennedy, who I think is really, really interesting. So I'll just go through. Speak to Sell is one. No BS, Ruthless Management of People and Profits. Mindset. There's a book called, excuse my language, it's called Unfuck Yourself by Gary John Bishop, which was awesome. I'm a personal development guy. The New Psycho-Cybernetics, and then Badass Habits. Those are probably and so I've got 2 dogs and I walk with them twice a day for an hour, and I just throw on books and I walk in the middle of the park, and it's amazing the ideas that come during that time. And that's in Brazil, like that's sort of what I got.
Yeah, got it. And that sounds great. And I'll definitely list those books in the show notes. And then my last question, this is the bonus round, Corey, is you've been all around the world. So, you probably hate this, but what is the most impactful experience you've had in your travels? I know that's hard to categorize.
Sure. It's difficult. I'll share a story that to me was really profound. The reality is it's been 15 years. I'm writing a book right now about the education that I learned traveling for business, and how I think it's more what you learn traveling alone by yourself in the world is more valuable than what you can learn in a classroom or what you could learn in an internship. And the whole idea is it's like 10 lessons in 10 countries with 10 different teachers. This story is not even going to be in the book, but I was in Burma or Myanmar. And I was in a small town, and I met a Czech girl. we were both doing yoga at the beach at sunset, like one of those crazy situations. She's like, oh, tomorrow there's a temple, you should go see the monk. And I was like, oh, I don't know what that means. She's like, I'm staying at this hostel, rent a scooter, come pick me up. And she just took me on this tour through the Burmese countryside to literally a cave in the middle of nowhere where there's a monk. And she's like, she and I were walking in. She's like, no, I think it's better that you go on your own. So I'm like walking up. I have no idea what's going. I approach this cave, and there's a monk who he lives on, a straw mat with a small covering over it, doesn't speak a word of English. And he just like motions for me to go into the cave with him. This is, even as I'm saying it, it sounds so bizarre, but I go into the cave, and it's completely dark. And there was like, as we're walking in, I can just feel all these bats flying around. And then he like motions me to sit, and he just puts his hands over my head and he starts praying. And I have no idea how much time passed when I was there. But the only thing that came to my mind was like, service, do things for others, service, do things for others, service, do things for others, service, do things for others. And it was just like, it just stuck with me, that when I think about whatever it is that I'm trying to do, and it's cool running a business, and it's cool being profitable and being an entrepreneur, all of that stuff. But the basis for all of the things that I try to do on a daily basis is to be of service and do things for others. And it was just such a bizarre and powerful experience, like tapping into a different realm, that it has to be one of the most memorable experiences I've had.
That is really cool. Well, I'll have to have you back on when the book comes out, because I'd be interested in reading that book. Yeah, because cool. I think everybody should get exposed to a different culture. I think it makes you appreciate yours a little bit more, or at least look at it in a different way. So, Corey, where can people get in touch with you, reach out to you, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm sure in the show notes we'll include my you can write me personally to my email address. It's corey@consciouscounsel.ca. Our Instagram is Conscious Counsel. The new website we're launching is lawsfund.com. And yeah, you can just find me anywhere and say hi if you enjoyed any of this. If you want to chat, I'm available for everybody.
Awesome. And those links will be in the show notes. Go to trainerjim.net. Click on this episode of the podcast, and the links to contact Corey will be right there. Corey, man, thanks a lot for spending the time, taking your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, now go enjoy that sunset and the walk with your dogs.
Yeah, that's where I'm going to. But Jim, for real, thank you. It's really cool to be connected. The best part of what I get to do is meet awesome people like you. So I really appreciate it, and thanks for the opportunity to chat.
Anytime, man. I'd love to have you back on sometime.
Cool. Cheers, dude. Be great. Okay. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
All right. Thanks, Corey. Bye.
Ciao.